Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America, all the ships at sea, and other political junkies. Well, Dan, political gadfly, and at it again. I just feel tremendous need to remind America of 1968 when Richard Nixon was running for president, and quite bluntly, uh, he committed treason by undermining uh, the Paris peace talks to end the war in Vietnam, and he and his team they undermined. They got the South Vietnamese to walk away from the table a few days before the election, thereby assuring that Donald Trump, or excuse me, I meant to say Richard Nixon, and his cronies uh, would get control of the White House. And I'll tell you what, he did get elected because of his interference in State Department affairs. And I'll tell you what, Lyndon Johnson went on to call it treason, and it certainly was. Now, awareness of this activity first came out in a book to the American people called The Making of a President, 1968, by Theodore White. And actually, it talks about how the Nixon campaign got involved with sabotaging the Paris peace talks, and they got Anna Chenault to be the goat on that. She undermined the peace talks, and when they fell apart, Nixon got elected. He ended up extending the war until after his re-election in 1972. He did go to China, providing Wall Street with the cheap labor, near slave labor that they craved. And of course, Nixon, just being so dirty, he got himself involved in Watergate, and he resigned in 1972. Back then, the Republicans were integrity based, and they saw what he was and the crook that he was. And I'll tell you, after the awareness of what had gone on with Nixon, I really got to ask myself what I think of a man or any political group that would extend a war, a shooting war, 4 or 5 years just to satisfy their own ambitions, their greed, their need for control, their own lust. That's a real sickos. And so, at any rate, let's just think all the people that died, all the human suffering for the 5 years that went on, his expansion of the war in Cambodia. But it's also time, I think, I got to start asking myself, what pattern do we see coming from mob bosses, corrupt CEOs, corrupt politicians? When they want dirty deeds done, how is it that they get these deeds done and they don't get convicted? And of course, tell you what, people laughed about it, they ignored it. But really, what nickname did Michael Cohen have when he worked for Trump? And it was Fixer. Now, actually, take a look at Wikipedia and find out something about back channeling. God bless Wikipedia, thank you. And so let's continue on because Trumpy boy was a real back channel, just like Nixon. And I'll tell you what, this story gets told, the Chenault affair. If you go to Internet Archives, you can search for Chenault, and that's got two N's, and her name starts popping up, and it comes out about how she is, she gets stuck with all the blame. Nixon tells the true believers she acted on her own. You know, baloney. She had received instructions, and that eventually comes out. Now, by the way, you can also get a hard copy of the book from your public library, and you'll find references on page 380, 381 to the, you know, how, well, I'll tell you what. Lyndon Johnson actually caught Nixon on this dirt. And Johnson had ordered CIA to monitor all calls to Southeast Asia. And don't you know, Chenault, not being the sharpest knife in the drawer, she's communicating this subterfuge, this desire by Nixon campaign to undermine the peace talks. She relates that. Johnson catches her, and then he confronts Everett Dirksen, leader of the Republicans in Congress, about this. And Johnson, of course, says that Nixon's behavior is treason. Everett Dirksen says, I know, and it is. And right there, there's the number, the Johnson Public Library, as a matter of public library, of this particular conversation. Now, with the passing of time, eventually, BBC, actually, and other networks, really, it's all over the place if you want it. You know, what the background is. Now, Johnson was doing the recordings for posterity, so Americans would have it raw. And again, he caught Nixon playing with enemies and allies, and he accused Nixon of treason, and it was. Said he had blood on his hands, and he did. Now, Nixon and his back channeling, actually, again, it came out in a lot of detail, very late on British Broadcasting Network, BBC, and you know, Nixon had told Chenault to do what she was doing. So again, it was treason, and again, right on the eve, well, right before the election comes out, South Vietnamese walk away. Democrats look like fools. Nixon gets elected, and there we go. You got the treason thing. Now, actually, it wasn't the treason that brought down Nixon. He was just, he loved making, he was a suspicious, sneaky guy, and he instructed his aides when he's in the White House to get him to do whatever it would take to elect him. They decide to do a break-in, and they do the break-in, and of course, Nixon gets caught in the cover-up. And well, I'll tell you what, there's a Roger the Artful Dodger. He loved Nixon, and he loved Trump. He's a longtime friend of Trump, and it was Trump that pardoned this guy, Stone, Roger Dodger, Stone, of, well, I'll tell you what, Stone lied to Congress to cover up Trump's connections to Russia, to cover up the back channel, all of that. Stone was a part of getting the communications going between Trump and the Ruskies, and actually it came out, like this is from Radio Free Europe, but it's all over the place, but people know it, that the Trump campaign had got all kinds of communications with the Russians. And by the way, Mueller report, the only thing they said was, well, while there were plenty of contacts, they lack the evidence sufficient for criminal charges, let alone a conviction. And so we might want to ask, what does a Grand Royal High Exalted Poobah do to get the dirty deeds done without there being any documented proof? Well, first, he's effectively got to find a fool, a yes man, brown nose, true believer, whatever you want to call it, and communicate his needs, his desires to the sucker. And sometimes they do it by meeting on a golf course. Sometimes they do it by meeting in a bathhouse. If ever you've wondered why Trump was so fond of the village people, you know, they could meet at the YMCA. Why? So in the bathhouse, you make sure your buddy there, your good buddy, isn't wearing a wire. But anyway, village people, you know, they told Trump, we don't authorize your use of our stuff. We don't support you. So there they are, Saturday Night Live, telling them to cease and desist. You know, one of the funniest things I ever saw. And of course, sometimes fools admire this kind of back channel, backstabbing behavior. And there we are with the Godfather. You know, you could always whisper the dirt you want done into the ear of the fool, and very often the fool willing to do this stuff for the dirt, he is a back channel dealer himself, a sicko, somebody with a sad, you know, upbringing. And I think that we might do well to consider how faithful Trump has been in so many of his relationships and business dealings. Look at the public record on his marriages. Look at what he did to the poor kids who went to Trump University hoping to get an education, how he ripped them off. And, you know, it's a matter of public record. That operation was so corrupt it had to be shut down by the courts. And you may also want to look online at Trump's involvement with the United States Football League and what he did to his partners in that United States USFL and what he thought of them. And so I think that you'll come to the same conclusion as me, is that Trump is very dangerous while he's running as president. He and his kind really need to be shut down because they're virtually capable of anything. And Richard Nixon and his campaign proved it. So I'll tell you, we Americans, I believe we must exercise our duty, be responsible, informed citizens, and stop this nonsense that has gone on with these back channelers that want to make deals with dictators and undermine our State Department, the elected leaders of our country. Thank you very much. It's God Bless America and all of this stuff, and enjoy democracy, please.